fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to DBR Bites, episode number 149. Of course, we are here. Donald, Jason, we're here to preview the UNC game that is coming up this weekend. Revenge is on the menu. And for me, I think revenge is a dish best served in Cameron on Saturday night. Jason, how are we doing this afternoon? It's been a busy week for both of us. You with work, me with work and soccer and basketball, but we're looking ahead. We're looking forward to Saturday night.
Yeah, always. The Carolina game, so special. Of course. Yeah, I've been crazy busy. I'm not sure if folks have heard. I work at CNN. There's been a war going on. I've been covering the war all week long. So yeah, it's been a busy week, and I am ready for a weekend where I don't think about that stuff too much and where I focus on concluding an incredible regular season for the Duke Blue Devils. Regardless of how Saturday turns out, I would say this regular season has been far beyond what any of us thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it.
But I was going to say, look, we expect Duke to win every game and, of course, but it's still, just in terms of the progress this team has made and the way they've made it and the schedule that they faced and the way they've done against that schedule. If I told you at the start of this season, Donald, that this team was going to eclipse a plus 40 efficiency mark on Ken Palm, you would have checked me into a mental hospital. Even if I said to you, oh, they're going to be the number one team in the land, you would have been like, oh, okay, I can see it maybe happening. But what they've done, the way they've gotten there, it's ridiculous.
It's been so much fun to watch, and again, within the ACC at least, we have a chance to avenge the only loss that we have on our record in conference to date. And it's funny, we're going to talk about the ACC schedule a little bit later. We're going to talk about the fact that it's senior night. Maliq Brown, Cam Sheffield, Jack Scott will be playing their senior game in Cameron. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But Jason, we're the 1 seed. We're locked in. We already won the conference outright. UNC is actually locked into the 4 seed for the ACC tournament. So this could happen again next week. So all we have to rely on is just clean old-fashioned hatred for one another. That's all we're going to go with. Those kind of vibes on Saturday. Again, revenge. That's the dish that I will hopefully be eating along with the rest of you at the expense of the Tar Heels on Saturday night. Let's, as we do when we play teams multiple times in the season, let's get into what they've done since we last played UNC back on February 7th. Since that game, UNC is 5-2. They lost immediately afterwards, like that following Tuesday, to Miami by 9. And that was the game that Caleb Wilson fractured his hand and was rendered out for the next 6 games. And he is still out. We'll have an update on him in just a minute. They then came back, beat Pitt by 14. And then they got throttled by NC State. But that was a game they did not have Henry Visar as well as Caleb Wilson in the lineup. They got throttled 82-58 and looked terrible in that game. But since then, they have won 4 straight. It hasn't been great. It hasn't been a solid, butt whipping or anything. But they beat Syracuse by 10. They beat Louisville by 3, Virginia Tech by 7, and Clemson by 4. Visar was back in the lineup, has since returned to the lineup in that time frame. But again, Caleb Wilson is out. Before we get to we're going to kind of do the metrics and stuff a little bit differently because we've obviously seen these teams before. But before we do that, I just want to talk quickly about what happened last time. Of course, I'm not going to rehash most of it, but we know that this was a game where Duke was ahead in almost every single intangible or tangible statistical category. Rebounding, points from turnovers, paint points, second chance points, fast break points, bench points, all went Duke's way. Duke was ahead the entire game until the final under a second left in the game when Seth Trimble hit that three. Of course, Duke loses by 3, and we all know what happened in the post game after that. UNC, the only statistical category that they really led in, they hit one more 3 than Duke. Duke was 7 for 19, UNC 8 for 19. Of course, that Seth Trimble 3 being the difference there. So, Jason, let's get into what has happened since then. I know you have some of the metrics, again, not the full slate, but since we last played them, how UNC has been doing, but also, again, factoring into the mix that for at least a couple of games, they did not have Henry Visar, and since the Miami game, they have not had Caleb Wilson.
Yeah, by the way, you left out one other statistical category where North Carolina led Duke in that game, free throws and free throws attempted.
Right. Again, it was a gloss over. I don't want to rehash all of the stupid stuff that happened in that game.
Oh, I just can't even. I can't even think about that. All right, let's get to some metric things. And first of all, I'm not going to go through the usual rigmarole, both on the metrics or the players. We did it with Carolina in the past, so you know a lot of this stuff. But just a couple reminders of some things in the metrics that matter. This is a highly efficient Carolina offense that gets that efficiency from not turning the ball over. They have the 17th lowest turnover percentage in all of college basketball. They also shoot high-quality two-point field goals. Look, they're just an average three-point shooting team, but as a two-point shooting team, they hit almost 57% on their twos. So you combine low turnover, very efficient on two-point field goals. That's where Carolina gets their offensive strengths from. On defense, it's really built, and we talked about this in the past, but I want to reiterate it to everybody, built around keeping you out of the lane. Carolina walls off the lane and prevents you from getting in there. Their two-point field goal distance on defense, which is a stat we talk about a lot, is the 4th best in the country. They don't let you get shots close to the bucket, and as a result of that, they have the 13th best field goal percentage defense on two-point field goals. 45.8% is all that teams hit against them. As I've mentioned many times in this podcast, Duke is a great two-point field goal team. We're the 4th best two-point field goal shooting team at better than 61%. Carolina is top 15 at two-point field goal defense. So that's the battle in this game. Do they keep Duke away from the basket? Do they force Duke to take mid-range shots, which we avoid like the plague? Do they force Duke into poor shooting when Duke gets off two-point field goals? Essentially, if Duke hits close to 60%, like we usually do, Carolina's in big trouble. If Carolina can hold Duke down to 45%, like they do against most opponents, Duke is probably in big trouble. There you go. That's the ballgame, Donald. We don't need to talk about anything else. Oh, wait.
But it's funny, right? Against UNC last time, both teams struggled in the paint. If you talk about just inside the paint, Duke shot 48% in the paint, UNC shot 47%. So it was like a clash of titans here. We won on the rebounding margin, and we always talk about how UNC is always great at offensive rebounding. We held them in that game to just 4 offensive rebounds. And so
and they're not a great offensive rebounding team this year.
Right, they're not the years past,
but they're not great.
Team. Yeah, but again, that battle inside is still captivating. Of course, the question will be about Caleb Wilson, but even without him, it's still a battle that traditionally is one where the game is usually won inside those trenches.
Let me get to one other sort of interesting aspect about this game that we touched on a moment ago, which is those free throws. Both Duke and Carolina are teams that don't allow you to get to the free throw line. Duke has the 2nd lowest opponent free throw rate, which is like free throws compared to field goal attempts. Duke has the 2nd lowest opponent free throw rate in the country. Carolina has the 3rd lowest opponent free throw rate in the country. By the way, Donald, the only team better than Duke and UNC at not sending teams to the free throw line is Illinois. The difference between Duke and Carolina and Illinois is that Illinois doesn't really play defense nearly as well as these two teams do. Like Illinois, all those Serbs and Croats and Montenegrins and the such on that Illinois team on their front line, they're just sort of like, yeah, go ahead, take your layup. I'm going to shoot a layup at the other end, so I don't care. That's kind of the way Illinois works. Anyway, I wanted to mention one of the things that got to be figured out about this game is Caleb Wilson playing. Like that's just huge. because as you mentioned, he's missed their past 5 games. Really, it's 6 because he was playing. He was clearly hobbled against Miami.
It was 6 plus the Miami game. So they've had 6
plus,
since Miami.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I apologize. So I went ahead and I sorted Bart Torvik's metrics with and without Caleb Wilson. Prior to Caleb Wilson getting hurt, Carolina had the number 27 offense and the 35th best defense. Since his injury, they've dropped a little bit, but not terribly. I mean, they're still pretty darn good. As I said, they had the 27th best offense. Without Caleb Wilson, they have the 52nd best offense. I said they had the 35th best defense. Without Caleb Wilson, they're 46 on defense. So they're worse without him, but not like, again, not falling off a cliff or anything like that. The big thing that you notice is like their effective field goal percentage with Caleb Wilson and without him. There's a big drop there. They were top 50 at effective field goal percentage because Caleb Wilson gets good shots. That and he's able to generate good looks for them in the half court. They are 144th in effective field goal percentage without him. They're a worse rebounding team also without him. That's not surprising. Caleb Wilson's a walking double-double, so that shouldn't come as any surprise. But they still are very, very good. They don't get called for fouls. There are a lot of things this Carolina team does well, even without their best player. And amazingly, they've gotten even better at not putting players on the line. We talked about that free throw rate. Their free throw rate is even better without Caleb Wilson than it was with him, which is kind of amazing. And you see it like their most recent game against Clemson. Clemson shot a total, and Duke fans will remember, Clemson shot a total of 6 free throws in this game. That's ridiculous. Just so you understand, in Clemson's previous game against Louisville, they shot 34 free throws. They went from 34 in one game to 6 the next game. It's crazy how good Carolina is at convincing the refs not to blow the whistle.
Well, hopefully they won't get the home cooking, because if they do, they're going to be doing it on the road on our home floor. Hopefully we're getting the home cooking, at least by guys who are getting fouled, actually having the fouls being called for them so that they can go to the line and shoot these free throws. Jason, you mentioned obviously the last 7 games, and we have to talk about, as we kind of shift to some of the players, we have to talk about the status of Caleb Wilson, because that's the biggest question for UNC entering this game. Will he be back? And when he got hurt against Miami back on February 10th, they were basically saying, okay, he's out 3 to 4 weeks. That puts us right at that Duke game, the return game, as him being ready. And literally before we started recording, maybe 2 minutes before we jumped on, there was an update released on ESPN, and it was comments from Hubert Davis about Caleb's status. Will he be ready for Saturday? The answer is they don't know. He has not been cleared yet for 5v5 practice, but he has been doing individual drills and trying to ramp up his individual drills in an effort to be at least eligible to be in practice. You would think tomorrow, right? We're recording on Thursday. We got one more practice, and then you got the game. If he's not cleared for 5v5 by tomorrow, it's very doubtful that he would be eligible medically to be cleared in time for the game on Saturday. But who knows, right? The thing about John Shire is he has stated that they are preparing for this game with him in the lineup and preparing for this game without him in the lineup. And that's all you can really do. I won't be surprised if he plays. Let's just leave it at that. This is one of those games where people all of a sudden get a shot of adrenaline, maybe a shot of cortisone, maybe a little hand wrap, and he's and they're good to go. But Jason, talk about what you think about that against the fact that, again, he torched us in the first half in that first game, but we were able to kind of hold him at bay in the second half, and other guys were the reasons why we ended up in the loss column.
Yeah, let's get into the players. And regarding Caleb Wilson, I think that it would have to be, it's not going to be Hubert Davis. It would have to be a doctor who would say, correct, this is unwise. If you play, there is a enhanced chance that you will re-aggravate the injury. And as a result, you would miss the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. Other than that, I think Caleb Wilson's going to be like, I'm going out there. Like that guy's a competitor. He's a Carolina player, so you can hate him all you want. I choose to admire his competitive fire because it's impressive. And I think that if they go, well, Caleb, how you feeling? He's going to be like, I'm putting on the uniform. I'm playing. Like,
It doesn't. It didn't even have to be Caleb Wilson, right? Like when you think about last year when we had Maliq Brown, I'm sure every game Maliq Brown's like, "Yo, just wrap me up. I'm good to go." There has to be an adult to be like,
yes.
sit your butt down, rest. We need you today, but we need you more later on, and we need you to be healthy for this stuff. So like, yeah, they need to have an adult in the room. Is the question is what that adult will say.
Well, and as you mentioned, as we've talked about, Duke is locked into the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament. Carolina is locked into the number 4 seed. This result on Saturday will not change seeding at all for the ACC tournament. I would argue that this result for Duke can't change. Duke's going to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. The only real question is, will they be the overall number 1 or just one of the number 1s? For Carolina, obviously this game could matter significantly for their NCAA seeding purposes. If the Heels find a way to win this game, they probably start pushing their way up to like maybe the 4 line. If not, they're probably, around the 6 or so, 5 or 6. But it matters. But I think, again, in terms of Caleb Wilson, the message to him would have to be there are more important things lying ahead than a Duke Carolina game. Although sometimes it feels like there's nothing more important than the Duke Carolina game. All right. Hey, Donald, let me do this really quick. I want to talk about some of the players in Carolina and sort of how they have changed, how they playing a little bit differently since we saw them last time, and especially since Caleb Wilson got hurt. So the first guy I'm going to talk about is a name that we did not even mention in the first game against Duke because this guy did not play. 0 minutes played. That is Zayden High. He has actually come on and he's been a starter in a couple of the games lately, especially when Henry Visar was hurt. He sort of moved his way into being Visar's primary backup and also perhaps playing a little bit of power forward because Caleb Wilson isn't around. Zayden High is a functional part of the Carolina rotation. He's had a couple games where he scored in double figures. He's rebounding really, really well. Like his rebounding numbers are very impressive since he began to play a little bit more for them, 6 games ago or so when Caleb Wilson got hurt. It is worth noting. I just want to let folks be aware of this. Zayden High was at Carolina. He was a 4-star recruit, a fairly highly touted recruit 2 years ago. He did not play at all for UNC last year as a sophomore because he was kicked out of school and kicked off the team for, well, no other way to say it than this. He had sex with a woman, with a fellow UNC student, and he recorded it without her permission, and then he let other people watch that recording. And Carolina said, yeah, you can't do that. And so they kicked him off the team and they kicked him out of school. They have since allowed him back into school and back on the team. I'm not going to comment on whether that's appropriate or not. I do believe in second chances and the such, so I'm not saying the kid should be damned forever, but I just wanted everyone to be aware. Zayden High, not a good dude. All right, so let's get to some other guys in the team. Henry Visar, who missed a couple games when Caleb Wilson was also out, just so darn efficient. Over the past 4 games since he returned, he's hitting close to 71% on his 2-point field goals. Now, it is worth noting his 3-point shot has been off lately since he returned from this injury 4 games ago. On the year, he's hitting over 42% from 3. He's hitting just 23% of his 3-pointers over his past 4 games. So that's something that's been missing from Visar's game, at least lately. Luka Bogovac, who did like nothing against Duke, 3 points, 1 of 7 shooting, but Bogovac has seen his playing time tick up since Wilson got hurt, and he's had some big games. He was their MVP against Clemson earlier this week, a really big game for the Heels against Clemson. He hit 6 3-pointers in that game on his way to scoring 20 points, and several of those 3-pointers came late in a really close game. He had a couple, backbreakers that allowed Carolina to hold off Clemson. And then the last guy I want to talk about, Seth Trimble. We have to talk about Seth Trimble. He obviously hit the game winner against Duke last time. He is such a wild. If you look at him from game to game, it is impossible to tell what you're going to. Look, you're always going to get good defense. You're always going to get hustle. You're going to get smart plays. Seth Trimble is a senior. He's a 4-year starter for UNC. I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but he's always going to give you those intangibles. But what he gives you on offense, Donald, it's stunning how up and down this guy can be. remember obviously what he did against Duke. He has 16 points in that game against Duke. The very next game, they play Miami. He gets 4 points. He doesn't hit a single shot from the field. Literally went from 16 points, including the game-winning three-pointer against Duke, to not hitting a shot against Miami in the next game. They played NC State, and they lost NC State. He had 4 points on 1 of 9 shooting. And then 1 week later, they play Louisville, and he goes 11 of 16 for 30 points.
Right.
Dude can get like 4 points one game and 30 the next. It's impossible to know which Seth Trimble will show up from game to game, but I have a pretty good feeling that probably the Seth Trimble who, plays his damn heart out because he wants to beat Duke is probably the Seth Trimble we get on Saturday.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, that game before when he had 16 points, he was the only person on that roster who had played Duke in a UNC uniform.
Yeah,
and so to be able, I know for him, he mentioned that weight and the fact that we beat him 3 times last year. He wanted that back, and sure enough, we might have another round 3 again next week. But this time around for round 2. You got to key in on him, and you got to make sure that, again, people try to say it was something that I put on this team, but in any of these games, there's always the capability for someone on either team to produce when they haven't been producing lately. Someone that you don't think of steps up and have a big game. How many times over the last week have we talked about Darren Harris and his ability to come off the bench and score points? In this game against UNC, we talked about, funny enough, Dame Asar hitting a couple of threes that were twos because his foot was on the line. But that was a game where we're like, wow, he's starting to hit the outside shot. He hadn't been doing that to that point. He emerged as a guy who could hit that outside shot in this game. This game can make people play bigger than themselves. And so we have to key in on all these guys, especially the guys who have gained confidence in the absence of Caleb Wilson. And even with Henry Visar in the couple games that he was out of the lineup, you want to be able to make sure that these guys have zero confidence in Cameron, because the one thing you don't want to do is create any momentum. Your last thought on the players before we take a break.
Yeah, Donald, one of the things I think Carolina's been a little bit lucky about lately, since they've been playing without Caleb Wilson, is that they've mostly been playing at home. They've had 4 home games and 2 road games in their past 3 games in a row. Which have been 3 of their better results of the year: a victory over Louisville, victory over Clemson, and also over Virginia Tech. That all 3 of those games were home games. And their away games. The away games since he got hurt was just at NC State and at Syracuse. I'm sure State was hot. That arena was going, but they got their butts kicked by NC State. 82-58 was the score there. For these Carolina guys, without their, energy, that is what Caleb Wilson is, their energy. I think being on the road against Duke will be a major challenge for them. They're like you said, Seth Trimble's the only guy on this roster who's played Duke in a Carolina uniform. He's also the only guy in this roster who's ever played in Cameron Indoor Stadium. I think I'm trying to remember. Henry Visar was at Arizona when they played us in Cameron 3 years ago. He might have been, but in any event, bottom line is Cameron's different. And I think these guys, look, I'm sure they'll be prepared mentally. At least they hope they will be. But I don't know. I think that you can never underrate how much the home crowd in Cameron in a big game can get into the heads of the opposing team.
Yeah, I think, again, this game has the opportunity to have a magnitude way above that your team is been playing. And so we can't expect the struggles of UNC to show up in Cameron on Saturday. We just have to meet the intensity of the moment. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the things to watch in this game. But first, let's take a quick break. More about the UNC game on the other side. Cold days, big goals, no time to cook? Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs, so you can eat well without the planning or cooking. Factor meals are made with quality functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. Factor meals fit my schedule, and I felt full between meals so I could avoid snacking. Healthier eating, calorie management, and ready quickly so I can fuel for the rest of the day. That's what Factor Meals did for me. So when you're ready, head to factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off. Use that code DukeBB50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. New subscribers only, varies by plan, one free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. All right, we are back. We continue our preview of the big game against UNC. Again, that game Saturday evening, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. We're going to talk about the things to watch. And the first thing I think in this game is when you have a lot of the pageantry that surrounds the final game of the season, it's very easy to come out flat. It's very easy to come out unfocused, or at least just the ball of nerves that kind of naturally develop when you just want to, play your heart out for the last game in that gym. And, of course, we're undefeated in Cameron. We want to stay undefeated in Cameron this year. To do that, we got to start out sharp. And that's, I think, a mindset of we've done that pretty good recently, right? Coming out and not necessarily having great starts, but having solid starts. And in case of some of these games, having terrific starts and really opening the doors quickly. But I think just starting out sharp, you don't have to make all your shots, but you want the execution to be there in both offense and defense. And that's going to help anybody who may have any nervousness about this game to ease into it and to at least get their feet under them, get their legs going underneath them, and then we're off and running. Now, I think the one thing that we didn't do as well in the second half of the other game back on February 7th was we allowed UNC to build momentum through hitting three-pointers. And it's not like they hit a bunch of them in a row, except for the final 2 minutes of the game. The rest of them were spaced out, but they were at opportune times for them to develop momentum. Our perimeter defense has been great since that game, in my opinion. That's been part of the reason why we have elevated to the number one defense in KenPom and the number one team in the country. That perimeter defense should be there on Saturday. And if it is, it's going to really put them out of sorts, even if they have Caleb Wilson in the game. Because sure, Caleb Wilson is a guy that's going to be able to take the ball and even bring it up the court if he needs to try and set up his own offense. But everyone else kind of relies on each other to start the offense. And if you cut off that avenue, it just throws them out of sorts. And against Miami, when I watched that game against Miami, the one thing Miami did was they had Shelton Henderson kind of come up to the top, a la Adama Sarr, and say, all right, we're just going to stop the offense right up here and disrupt it right here. Because after that, everything is out of rhythm. And they were really taking some terrible shots because of the fact they were out of rhythm for 30 seconds when they had the ball. So perimeter defense, I think, is there. I think continuing to own the paint like we did, cleaning them out on the boards, especially on the offensive glass, I think is a major key. Again, with or without Caleb Wilson, Henry Visar is going to be there. You got guys there who are going to be able to rebound. They're not as good as a rebounding team as UNC teams of years past, but they still have that quality. They still have that capability. So let's go ahead and own that. The last thing, Jason, for things to watch is not necessarily a thing to watch. It's a thing to do. Cameron Indoor Stadium. All 9,314 of you that will be there on Saturday night. Bring the noise. Bring everything. This is the last game of the season that you can see inside those friendly walls. So make it count. Every single one of you should not have a voice at the end of this game. I promise you, I will not be at the game, but my voice is going to be gone too. You're going to be joined by a legion of fans that are not at this game, but you have to cheer for us too. That is your job. That is a thing that you don't have to watch out for. That is something that you can take control of once you walk inside those walls. And so I'm hoping that Cameron is as loud as it's ever been to not just salute our seniors in Maliq Brown and Jack Scott and Cam Sheffield, but to cheer on these guys in the last game of the season so that we may, again, we're 28-2 in the season. We're not going to go undefeated in the season, but we can go undefeated in Cameron. And that is our job every single year, is to try and make it where Cameron is the fortress that it is because of y'all. So bring the noise, bring everything you got for all of us. And I promise you, it is going to be a major effect in this game.
All right, so I got something really quick. You were just talking about Duke's three-point defense since that game against Carolina. We're allowing opponents in the 7 games since then. We're allowing opponents to hit 26.1% of their three-point shots. It's a pretty good number.
Yeah, I like that number.
Since that Carolina game, in the 7 games we played since then, we have the number 1 defense in the country and the number 2 offense in the country. Duke's been playing pretty damn well since that setback. And then last thing I wanted to mention about this Carolina game, and then there's something I want to do about seniors and such, but last thing I want to mention about this Carolina game, Hubert Davis was on his radio show earlier this week. And I don't mean to mock Hubert. You know, he's a good guy. But on the radio show, he said, hey, I just want everybody to know, I've been getting more into analytics this year. He said, yeah, I've got Marcus Page and Sean May, 2 of my assistant coaches, are really helping me out with analytics. In fact, he was so proud of this. He goes, Marcus Page gives me a full report on all the analytics about every player on the game on the team every 10 games or so. Donald, Hubert Davis is getting an analytics report every 10 games. Well, welcome to like 2005 or 2006, Hubert. I mean, are you kidding me? Every 10 games? Hubert's got 2 assistants who are like helping him to figure out analytics a little bit. Good guy. I bet John Shire has 5 or 6 guys on the staff who like do nothing but analytics. I guarantee you, John Shire is thinking, talking, discussing, and using analytics, not every game, maybe every halftime. This is it's hysterical to me that the thing that is changing basketball at all levels, the use of advanced analytics, Hubert Davis is all proud about the fact that he's looking at it once every 10 games. Goodness gracious, Carolina, please give him a lifetime contract.
I mean, look, there's something to be said about the eye test, right? On this show, we talk about how you're very much
I'm
an
not saying
analytics.
It's worthless. I get you.
Yeah, and I love the eye test because I can look at a team and go, that team is good, and here's why. But you have a balance, and even me, right? Like back then when you were doing all the analytics, I was like, Jason, you go ahead and take all that stuff. And I've started to embrace what it can mean, right? And how it can, factor into just an overall evaluation of a team. And we talk about analytics on the show all the time. So I almost don't want them to embrace this. I want them to go ahead and just make it every 30 games, right? Do it once a year, kind of, ease into this thing, baby, because the last thing we want is for them to feel like they're getting any better because of their starting to pay attention to analytics. But what I will say is, you mentioned our staff. There is no staff better, in my opinion, at analytics than Duke's is. They are constantly online. If you saw the joke the other day about the Ken Pom Player of the Year, they asked like, "Hey, can you talk about the top? Can you tell us what the top 100 is? Because we're trying to see what the gap is between 2 and whatever." How long we got to go down before it matches the gap between Cameron Boozer and second place, because it's wide. So again, they're very online with that.
I bet it's more than 100. I mean, Cam's lead over the second place guy, Joshua Jefferson of Iowa State, is so huge. I bet the gap is way more. It's
like 2 points, which is unfathomable.
You can't even conceive of how much. Evan Miyakawa, who I was talking to him today. Talking to Evan, I'm gonna try and have Evan on. I think maybe like right before the ACC tournament, give us some national kind of stuff as we're thinking about getting our heads toward the NCAA tournament and such. But the reason I want to have Evan on is that he went ahead. In fact, he sent me a note about it. He's like, "Hey, you got to tell your audience about this a little bit." He calculated that Cameron Boozer is having the greatest season of any college basketball player in more than 15 years. Like, Evan's been tracking this for 15 plus years. And Cameron Boozer's having the greatest. Cameron Boozer, from an efficiency standpoint, is having the greatest season we've seen since Evan started tracking this stuff. He just moved ahead of Zach Edey. Zach Edey had been the previous sort of greatest college basketball player of the past decade and a half. So I wrote back to Evan. I was like, "Yeah, dude, we got to have you back on to talk about this stuff."
Yeah.
All right, sorry. So I got totally distracted. I want to talk about seniors really quick, Donald.
Mm-hmm.
So at the high major level, there are 5 power conferences. Total of 76 teams between the ACC, SEC, Big Ten, blah, blah, blah. 76 total teams. I'm going to say on average, 10 scholarship guys in each one of those teams. That's them. There's some, like Duke really has 9 guys in the rotation, although we got a 10th in Sebastian Wilkins. But, I'm going to say on average, so 760 or so players at the power conference level, approximately. Donald, how many of those players do you think this week, either midweek or over the weekend, seniors are celebrating their senior day at the same school for 4 years, at the school that they started out at? Hey, I began here 4 years ago. I'm leaving here today, and I've been at the same school for all 4 years. How many 760 total guys, how many do you think have made it all 4 years at their school?
I'm going to go, you said 760, so I'll just do 10%. I'll say 76, which is a big number when you think about it.
It is a big number. Donald, the answer is 22. That's incredible to me. 22 total guys have made it from their freshman year to their senior year at their same school. I don't know what to say about it other than we're living in this crazy, strange era. But thinking about that a little bit is what caused me to reflect on the fact that one of those guys is in this game. Seth Trimble was at UNC as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and just this week celebrated his senior day. So, I'm not saying we should celebrate Seth Trimble or anything. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that. But, good on him. It also made me think a little bit about, okay, Duke's got a legit senior day coming here from Maliq Brown. We actually haven't had a ton of like really good senior days, but it's really nice. I mean, Maliq spent 2 years at Syracuse, but now 2 years at Duke. He's a 4-year player and he's a senior and he's celebrating at Duke. I'm not talking, it's different to me than like the Sion James and the Ryan Youngs, Mason Gillis's, Theo Johns, the guys we've gotten in recent years who are great. They had a senior day at their other school and then they came to Duke for grad stuff, even though we got Ryan Young for a couple of years. Love Ryan. So I was looking back in recent years and I was like, how did other seniors do at Duke in like their senior game? So Jeremy Roach, wasn't a great game for him. He had 13 points in his senior game. Duke played UNC in that game for Jeremy Roach. He just shot 3 of 12 from the field. We lost that game to Carolina. Probably not a great memory for Jeremy Roach. Joey Baker technically had a senior game. I mean, he played at Duke for 4 years. He then got a 5th year at Michigan because of the COVID year. But his last game at Duke, Joey Baker didn't even play. That was the Coach K retirement game. We were kind of focused on something else in that game. And I think everybody knew Joey had another year, so it wasn't like he was saying farewell. Before that, we had Jordan Goldwire. His last game at Duke, his senior game, was an overtime loss to Louisville. He had 1 point on 0 of 3 shooting. He did have 6 assists. But Jordan also then got an extra COVID year. The last, other than Jeremy Roach, the last sort of big senior game we had, Donald, you and I were at the game. Or at least I know I was. Oh, maybe you weren't there with me.
I was not at the.
It was Justin Robinson, Javin DeLaurier, and Jack White. It was 2020. That's right. You weren't there. I was there on press.
I was at the game before that when Jack White, who had a drought of like a month and a half of not hitting a 3. Me and Sam
against
were in the
Miami.
building when he hit that 3 against Miami.
Yes, exactly. The place went crazy. No, but that was the last senior game where all 3 of those guys started. Coach K started all 3 of them in 2020. Jack White had a 6 trillion. He played 6 minutes, didn't record any stats. Javin DeLaurier played 11 minutes. He had 3 steals in 11 minutes. He was 2 of 2. But that game shall forever be the Justin Robinson game. Justin Robinson's senior game, game of his life, 13 points, hits 4 out of 6 3-pointers. He had 4 block shots. J-Rob, oh my God. That game was legendary. That was the game, Donald, that made me decide I cannot sit on press row anymore. I need to sit because I was celebrating with every J-Rob 3-pointer. I was like, this is not appropriate for press row.
And this is the game that we came out of that game and we're like, this team is about to win a lot of hardware, and then COVID took it away from us.
Oh, I just don't even want to think about it. Oh, it's just so depressing. Yeah. So I had that sort of senior day kind of reflection. It was mostly because I just wanted to go back to the J-Rob game. What a great game that was. But I'm going to be intrigued to seeing, you think Maliq Brown gets a start on Saturday? Does
that's a great question. I don't know, because, here's the thing. We don't really do that as much anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, we had
I'll admit, I was surprised
guys who were
when
already starting do that, but like it'd be easy to throw a starting nod at Maliq Brown, but then you're doing that. If you don't do it for Jack White or Cam Sheffield, then is it again? I think they're just going to probably play this game the way it is. Maliq Brown's going to get his his introduction the way he has been getting his introduction for the most part for the last 2 years. That first time he checks into the game, kind of gets that standing ovation. Like that is probably going to be how they play that out, in my opinion.
Yeah, Donald, like I was saying, I love the fact that Justin Robinson, Javon DeLauria, and Jack White all got starts, but I don't think Maliq Brown is he's the kind of guy where he's so even keeled like Maliq. Mm-hmm. I don't think it really matters. I'm sure they'll do something where he gets a framed jersey. They will honor him for sure. I don't know. He's the kind of guy, he may not even want to say any remarks. Sometimes guys take the mic at the end of the game and say something. He may not want to. That's kind of Maliq. But we'll see. I want to hear all about it. If you're at the game, let us know, because I want to hear about it for sure.
Well, the other thing, right, and I think it brings up a good point, because we actually got a couple emails just in general asking about seniors, whether Maliq, there's been talk about Maliq coming back if possible in this day and age. Who knows about that? But I think the long and short of it is sure, over the last 4 or 5 years in this NIL era, we've had senior days with guys who didn't start here. And when you think about, again, a Sion James or Ryan Young, it's funny. I don't think of them as Tulane player. I don't think of them as a Northwestern player. I think of them as Duke players. And sure, they're only here for 1 or 2 years, but that's just how much we bring them into the program, how much they enjoy being a part of the brotherhood, and how much that carries along. The ovation, we joked about how at the Michigan game here in D.C., they introduced Con Kniffel, and he got a big standing ovation, and Sion James was right next to him, and they forgot to mention his name. But at the end of the game, when they did announce him, that roar was just as loud for him, right? People adore Sion James. I'm sure Sion James has a very tight connection with the brotherhood and with Duke. We talk about even the moms, right? The motherhood all went to watch them play the other night in Charlotte, which I think is terrific. I think these guys, it's still important to recognize these seniors, no matter where they started from, because they're ending with us. They chose, at least as part of their career, to say, I'm ending it at Duke University. I'm ending it hopefully in Cameron Indoor Stadium in front of these adoring fans. And I just want them to feel all the love possible. Jack and Cam stayed a second year, right? To really help us. Jack Scott comes in. I love the fact that they decided they wanted to end their career at Duke. And I want them to feel the love. I hope we blow this team out by 90 points, because it means that Jack Scott and Cam Sheffield can play the entire second half. Like, I want that for them, because they've earned that. And sure, we're not done, but this is a nice little moment for them. And hopefully everybody can stop to at least appreciate what contributions all of these seniors have, and we get to reflect back on that. And Jason, as you mentioned, I hope it ends like the J-Rob game ended, with a big win for Duke.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, we got to talk about the ACC tournament really quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny, right? We kind of hinted at this on the last show. We talked about the fact that the ACC tournament usually has this traditional schedule for the top 4 seeds. The number 1 seed always kicks off the day on Thursday. Now it's Thursday. It used to be Wednesday, but now it's Thursday. They used to kick that off. I'm sorry, it used to be Friday. Now it's Thursday. They used to kick that off at noon. No more. ESPN's like, we're not putting the best team in this conference on at lunchtime. We want this in prime time. So they have revamped the schedule for this year. So your number 1 seed, Duke Blue Devils, are not playing at noon on Thursday. They will be playing at 7 p.m. So mark your calendar, 7 p.m. The night session is when Duke will be playing the winner of the 8-9 game the day before. UNC, as we mentioned, is the 4th seed. They will be playing right after that at 9:30. So the great thing, Jason, about this is you still get the 2-hour head start on the recovery from your opponent that you might face. So I think that part's still good, but I think it makes sense to put the best teams at night, put the 2-3 seeds during the day. And again, they still have the way that they set it up where the number 1 seed is going to have the advantage of rest, the extra couple hours of rest over the other opponents, but they also get the night session, which I think is cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's I totally understand why ESPN and the ACC are doing this. When you think about the fact that they would have, had they not done this flip, Duke and UNC, who are probably, I mean, Duke's far and away the number 1 draw in all of college basketball in terms of television ratings. UNC's probably top 4 or so. To put those 2 teams in the middle of the day just doesn't make any sense from a rating standpoint. I get it. I 100% understand. It's fine. It's cool. Don, hey, one last really, really quick thing I wanted to mention before we go. So we have, because I've talked about it, it's on me. I've talked about the Dame Sar nickname thing. We've been getting tons of submissions. A lot of people have been sending stuff in. Y'all can stop now. Okay. I don't need any more of these Dame Sar nickname emails. Some of them are really great. I'm not saying they're not good. It's just like, I've gotten enough, but I did want to shout out one of them. And this wasn't a nickname. This was just a concept, but I thought this was so brilliant. Eric Bishop sent us this. He said there needs to be a new term that we come up with. It is the sarcasm. The sarcasm is the gap between the opposing team's usual point total and what they get when they play Duke and Dame Sar destroys their point guard. That's the sarcasm.
We have to figure out how to lump that in, because when you say sarcasm, it's hard to not get it from its original definition, but you have to kind of like have the pause, the sarcasm, right? Like
that is brilliant.
You got to hyphenate it, right? Somehow.
It's so brilliant. So like I said, stop sending me stuff, but if you got something as good as that, you can send it to me.
I just hope that Dame Sar, Cam Boozer, Pat Gongba, and the rest of the Duke Blue Devils dominate on Saturday.
I'm here for the sarcasm to be 30.
30, 40,
30 less
50.
points.
No tight games anymore. Let's get everyone come to my world, the world of blowouts. Let's hope we can put this to bed and send Carolina to hell on Saturday night. That will do it for this episode of DBR Bites. We will be back this
Why do we call this a
weekend.
Bites, dude? Why do we call this a Bites? This is not a This was almost an hour long.
It was a big bite. And of course, with the UNC comes that you have to make sure we chew slowly when we dissect them. So again, we'll be back at some point this weekend to recap that game, and then we'll start getting ready for the AC tournament. But until then, he's Jason. I'm Donald. It's time for the Duke Band to play us out and send Carolina to hell.